English translation 207th contact. Monday, 17th of March, 1986, 9:11 hours.
Today, I first have a question about your space-time configuration, which is practically another dimension, but which is equally directed to ours, and is therefore equally material. Our universe is called the Dern universe. How is it with our dimension and your dimension? What do you call these?
We denote your dimension with the term Goron, while we call ours Cirrus.
Aha. And these two dimensions, respectively, these two different space-time configurations, are materially identical in their build-up and existence?
That is of correctness.
And as it stands with the destroyer, then, it would also have to consist of matter, as this is also existent in our space-time configuration, right?
That is also of correctness.
Good. Then another question with regard to Earth's moon. For some time, scientists have maintained that the Earth's moon had its origin in or from the Earth. There is the theory that it had been spun off as an entire block of the Earth, while another theory purports that huge dust clouds, as well as smaller and larger chunks of rock and earth, were spun away from the Earth, and namely by the impact of a massive comet or another planet. The comet or planet involved should have been about as large as the planet Mars, etc. The spun-away material should have collected in the course of time and should have developed into the moon. But in contrast, you explained that the Earth's moon penetrated from your space-time configuration into ours, and then into the Sol system, in which it allowed itself then to be captured by the Earth as a satellite.
The assumptions of the terrestrial scientists do not correspond to the truth because the origin of the Earth's moon does not trace back to the Earth, and, thus, also not to a collision or such with a Mars-sized comet or planet. The moon found its way out of our space-time configuration at an early time and penetrated into yours, after which it was held by the Earth by its force of attraction and orbits around the planet since that time, deviating more and more from the Earth, and it still influences the Earth's rotation today as it did at the very beginning, and thus creates a braking effect.
You have already explained this to me before. But how is it with the matter of the moon? Of what kind is it?
It is, at least in certain parts, the same as the matter of the Earth, but other forms of matter also appear. Also, the isotopic compositions, with respect to oxygen, etc., are largely similar and sometimes even identical with those of earthly matter. Unfortunately, this fact will one day lead to the scientific false diagnosis that the Earth's moon was formed from ejected matter of the Earth.
Then, quite frankly, to them, one will barely be able to set the truth as a counterargument, for the earthly scientists are sufficiently and only too well known for their narrow-mindedness.
That will probably be so when the time comes that material comparisons, etc., can find their use.
Do you know when that will be?
No, in this respect, I can only make an estimate according to the earthly technical development. This brings me to about 15 to 20 years before the earthly isotope geology will have progressed so far with its technical measuring capabilities that respectable and accurate results can be achieved.
Then it will be so after the turn of the millennium.
So I suppose...
Another question. Sim Yase once told me that the Americans desperately strive to undermine the German language in order to destroy it, make it disappear, and eradicate it. This should be the case since the Second World War. Can you tell me something about this?
With what Sim Yase explained to you, it concerns a fact that actually also traces back to the Second World War. Already during the war, it was decided for all American forms of politics to undermine the German language by all possible means and make it disappear. As you say, in order to smooth the way for the worldwide dissemination of the American language, an abnormality of the original English language. This is done by the entire American economy, as well as by the military, the secret services and the sects, the actual government policy, and through all other things that generate an influence in any form and through which the German language can be subverted. The American secret resolution is that the German language is supposed to be replaced by the American, namely in a worldwide form, as I already explained. The American language should, slowly but surely, become the world language, which should replace all other languages, so not just the German. This is also a reason why Americans, once they have found entrance into a country in some form, no longer let themselves be driven out, but, as far as possible, stay in it for all times. This is also connected with the American plans for world domination, from which increasingly follows their nature of playing world police, from which arise many hotbeds of war. What is still to be said on top of that? I mean, in reference to the undermining of the German language by the Americans, is that the American language and the actual English language, too, are extremely deficient and poor in expression, as well as incapable of being expanded upon and pitiable. This is in complete contrast to the German language, which finds no equal in its mightiness and possibility of expression, not in any place or in any other language on earth. The German language is a continuation of the old Lyran language, and it is practically the only language on earth that can be endlessly developed and expanded upon in an absolutely understandable form. This being in the form of the possible combination of words and terms, or in the new creation of words and terms, etc. A fact that is not possible with the American language, or with the actual English language, or with any other language, as it is with the German language, which must be designated as the world's best language.
That is a word. There probably is not any more to be said in addition.
Nevertheless, a word is still necessary, namely that all German-speaking human beings should be mindful not to let their precious language be undermined by the English and American languages. Thus, all American and English words and terms should, if possible, be discarded from usage, namely in the everyday use of the language, as well as in the schools, in politics and economics, in the media, and wherever English or American words and terms, etc. appear. This should be the duty of every human who speaks the German language, because this is indeed, and without any doubt, the most valuable language on the earth. Anyone who does not respond to such extends his or her hand to the Americans for the criminal act of the undermining and eradication of the valuable German language.
With that, everything should probably be clearly explained. Then another question. In the New Testament of the Christian religion, there is talk in the Sermon on the Mount that Emmanuel should have fed 5,000 human beings, namely through the increase of fish and bread. To my knowledge, that is not true because in this connection, the storage banks only speak of just 250 human beings who participated in the so-called Sermon on the Mount. Also, these were not just men, as it is said in the New Testament. Like among other things in John chapter 6 and verse 10, rather, they were mostly women and children who followed Emmanuel up the mountain, whereby the mountain was truly more of a hill. Thus, the 5 barley loaves and 2 fish, which Emmanuel increased by his powers of consciousness, were not provided for 5,000 human beings, but rather only for 250 human beings, respectively women and children, among whom there were only 40 men. Now my question is this. When was the falsification made in relation to the alleged 5,000 persons?
That happened through John, as well as through the other disciples.
So it was still in Emmanuel's lifetime.
Yes, he lived at that time when the falsifications were made, already in India, where he also married and fathered several children with his wife. The falsifications originated from exaggerations.
Then one more question. Initially, it was only Judas Iscariot who could read and write. But to my knowledge, he also instructed all the other disciples in this art, which was not very popular at that time.
That is of correctness. Besides Judas Iscariot, all the other disciples were illiterates, who learned partially how to read in a short time by Judas, but not how to write.
But now it is again time, my friend, that I leave you and return to pursue my other duties.
Goodbye.
Then take care. Goodbye.